a child with a disability is going to bring challenges to that family no matter what their circumstances are. And it's unfortunate but true that there's a high level of people with divorce who have children with disabilities because it's it's an additional very stressful time. And so the key is to be able to find whatever resources are available. And in a rural area, back in the mid-'80s, there were certainly some resources, but not a lot. But the key is to give as much information and support and care and concern as you can, as that new mom and dad go through that circumstance. 1970 is actually when we're listed as our inception, and mostly moms, certainly a couple of dads, but mothers and a couple of folks from the health department who said we need to offer some options here. And so when we opened in 1970, it was in 2 rooms in the American Legion in Betterton, and there were only a handful of folks. I think there were 6 to start with, and they were anywhere from age like 5 to 54. The only common piece was the disability and the desire of the family to find a better option than staying home forever. So, an amazing kind of background, and it wasn't actually until many years after that when the Department of Education and the government said we need to provide education, and that's when we switched from providing services to kids and adults to exclusively to adults in 1975.
And that was just the clear direction that
Yes.
the group wanted to go.
Right.
Right.
Right, because then the school systems were responsible for educating kids up until age 21 in special education, and we became exclusively involved with adults, either 18 and up or 21 and up.
And that's your population now?
Yes, yes. Everybody has a disability, a developmental disability, so it occurred before age 21, is expected to last a lifetime and have some impact. And most of our folks have intellectual disabilities, which is the new term for mental retardation. They officially changed it about a year or so ago. Many of our folks have additional disabilities, cerebral palsy, epilepsy. We have some folks with what is called co-occurring disabilities, which means they have a mental health component as well as a developmental disability. So, but yeah, all the folks are adults.
Is it hard to structure programs around how do you deal with those individual segments?
I think that the biggest challenge for us is that in Kent County, we are not the only option, but just about the only option. And so we need to provide services to the person who comes out of special ed, needs a little bit of assistance, a little bit of polishing of skills to get a job, to live on their own, as well as the person who up until recently would have been an institution for their life and needs 24-hour care and needs physical therapy and all kinds of assistance, and everybody in between. So the biggest challenge for us is the specialization needs to be wide-ranging in terms of services because this person needs something that's very different from the person over here. So that's the bigger challenge than differentiating the disabilities.
But I would imagine that there are significant cost factors in certain of those segments.
Absolutely.
That 24-hour care thing puts an enormous responsibility on the institution, does it not?
It does. And we provide services to many folks who spent most of their lives in institutions, in state residential centers, as they're officially called. Folks that spent 20, 30 years and now live very successfully in the community. And, the shift was that the cost is truly not significantly different. There was a period of time where they thought we could save a lot of money by sending these folks into the community. Well, obviously, if we're going to provide the same level of nursing and physical therapy and staffing and everything else, we need to receive the funding, that would be somewhat comparable to an institutional setting. The difference is the quality of life. The difference is, spending time with your family and going to the tea party and going to a picnic at Wilmer Park and, doing the things that, in an institutional setting are just not going to be as available. In this field in general and here in particular, it really comes down to appreciating the small things. And, it's not cliche to say you measure it by the smiles, because one of the things that I say to staff is at the end of the day or at the end of the week, what have you done to bring a smile to this person's face? What have they, done differently than they might not have done had they not been associated with Kent Center? And so it's not milestones. The milestones is going to be pretty small in terms of the general public's, view perhaps, but it's just really appreciating the fact that this person, is obviously better off enjoying life having a good time, making friends, however you measure those kinds of things. I always say that we're only as good as our staff because, you're essentially responsible for someone's life. I mean, even though it's not a life and death situation, it is, and there's no question, we're a nonprofit and times are tight and, nobody here is going to make a whole lot of money, and so they're not here for that paycheck. They're here for that sense of joy, as you call it, to feel like you've made a difference in somebody's life, and once again, that's sort of a cliche, but that's how you feel. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the way you view what you've done today or at the end of the week.
Is there anything that you feel that the community misunderstands about the program and what the center's all about?
I guess the first thing that comes to mind is just because of the confusion of the name. We changed our name in 1986, and we changed it from Angels Haven of Kent at the time, and there were several reasons for changing it to Kent Center. Most of the other similar kinds of organizations, Caroline Center and so forth, had similar names, and so we thought we were sort of coming in line with everybody else. But unfortunately in Kent, either at that time or since then, there are so many things that are very close. Kent Family Center for many years, although they have since changed their name, but I mean there's so much confusion about which one is it. So I mean it's more of a confusion of who we are and what we do based on our name than anything else. I think the other piece of confusion that we sometimes get is the population that we serve. There are a lot of folks that think that developmental disabilities and mental health issues are the same thing, and sort of.
You lost your neighbor.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So, trying to differentiate, that both folks need time and attention and services, but here's who we specialize in.
How did you feel about losing the mental health center?
That was tough. It was tough because, we worked very closely with, the mental health hospital and the clinic and so forth, and, there were an awful lot of folks that had to leave their home base area, the folks that had to go, we were familiar with drivers that were taking folks out to Western Maryland and places because that's where the capacity was, and that was a tough thing. I mean, whether or not it seems like home to you and I, it was home to those folks for many, many years, and that was a really tough fiscal decision on the state's part to, separate from the individuals who were receiving services there, staff who had spent a lifetime or, a great deal of their adult lifetime working in that location. I mean, in this climate and in this community, trying to find another job, it was tough all the way around.